Yes, of course I'm recording. So here's the thing about the people in water, guys, is look at all the distortion. Look at the way some of this blue comes in right here and how it is right here. And all through the shoulders, it looks blue. And look at the ripple along the edge of the arm. And look at the legs. Look how the leg breaks into pieces down here. Look how this one just turns into this. And you say, oh gosh, that doesn't look right. Yes, it does. When somebody's swimming and the water's in motion, that's what happens. That's the distortion that occurs. If you try to fix it, it's going to stop looking like somebody's underwater or swimming. It's going to look like somebody's floating on top or above the water or something. Don't fix it. Instead, I want you to celebrate the distortions. So here we go. This is going to be the quick drawing. I look at the angle, the overall angle of the whole thing. I'm going to just start with your bottom bathing suit right here, and I'll draw a little darker than I normally do so you guys can actually see what it is I'm up to. I actually did a practice of this one, so I'm already comfortable sort of with it. This is coming this way, and here's your hip right here. And I'm going to change the color of her bathing suit. I've already made that choice because it's the same color as the water. And I think it just disappears. So I think it'd be more fun if you could actually see it. Here's this leg coming down. And again, it's got these wonderful ripples coming down, and then it kind of stops right there and it's skinny, and then it gets wider to there. And then down here, it's one shape, and then a little shape, and then a dot. So that's that leg. And then coming this way, it comes this way, it comes down this way, and again. And it's so much longer than the other one because of the distortion in the water. It comes this way, here's that thigh, and then it comes in like this. And then down here, it's crazy, but it comes like this. You've got to celebrate those distortions, I'm telling you, or it just won't feel watery. So then we come this way, and then what happens on the back? It comes, we've got this, and it doesn't, what you have to do is grab the approximation of the different shapes. They don't have to be exact in this case, because as you can see, it's so distorted. If it's a little off, who's going to know? Wait a minute, I thought there were 2 more ripples in that arm. Nobody's going to know. We have to draw what we see. I'm going to get this head in here while I'm at it. So this is right about here. That's the shoulder. It's going to be right about here is where that band comes across. The goggles or something like this. And then here's the head. And then there's a little thing that comes off the top of that head. And then this arm wraps around this way. And there's the fingers kind of reaching. And no more ripple there. And then what's this shape look like? It comes really right up to the head here. And here's the other hand. Again, with those fingers reaching. And then this really just turns into a collection of shapes over here. I'm exhausted, but there's the quick drawing right there. So let's get into the color part of this. I'll grab a paper towel. Here comes the paint. First things first, the palette a little bit. All right, and then I finally found my number 4 brush, so that makes me happy. But I'm going to get started with number 6, just so I don't start painting the eyelashes on too soon. And so here comes, I'm going to start with the flesh tones. I'm going to start with what is kind of a nice beigey. I'm using yellow ochre here and a hint of umber. And I'm going to just put in that kind of that beigey color right there. I see there's more blue right there. Oh, hold on. That's wrong shape. Wrong shape. I'm so sorry. This is it. This is it right here. And then this comes this way. I'm like, I thought I got that shape right. Well, I did. I just wasn't painting it. And there. And then I see a little bit of color in there as well. Like I see a little bit of just a hint of red over here. And this gets just a hint of purple right in here. So I'm going to drop those in while it's wet. And then I think I'm going to make that bathing suit. I'm going to decide that now so I don't forget. I'm going to make it purple. because it'll be offset by the blue. I'm gonna add just a touch of blue to it, but it's gonna be mostly purple. And that's gonna be this bathing suit right here. So when I do the blue, it stands out from that. Notice I'm gonna keep leaving little pieces of white here and there too, because there's a little bit of sparkle. It's a little hard to see in this picture, but a little bit of sparkle throughout the water and the figure that I think is kind of neat. And while I've got that purple mixed, I think this is the strap. There's a hint of a strap. That must be her top. And then now we can get started on the legs down here. Again, I think it's going to be a yellow ochre. It's going to be a little bit of umber. And that's a little dark, but that's about right. Coming down this way. And remind me to do that wash we talked about as well. And so I don't forget to do that. There comes a little bit of darks in here. So I see a little dark right here. I see a little dark there. I see a little dark along that edge. Just dropping them in wet into wet. And then we're going to go to that other leg. Again, there's pieces of that later beige. And as it comes down, it really changes. So we get quite a rich dark in here. I'm using a little bit of purple too when I do it, but a little bit of dark brown in here with a little bit of purple in it. Lower, it gets a little bit more yellow. So adding a little yellow ochre to that. And then same thing here, a little bit of brown. Good. All right. And then as we go up the body, we're just going to careful observation. It looks like not only is this part closer to the surface of the water, and so we see more color, that's probably part of it, but it's also tanner, right? So maybe she's wearing a t-shirt and this doesn't get quite as tan, but this is very much tan color up here. So we're going to start adding a little bit of red to our sort of the beige that we're using to capture more of that feeling. Yes. It comes this way, and there's dots of that red right through there. And then it comes up. There is a little bit more yellow in there, just a little bit. It comes this way, and again, I'm leaving some white dots, and here's the fingers reaching. There's something metaphorical about swimmers too, about how sometimes we all feel like we're a little underwater, or trying to reach the other side, or whatever metaphor you want to apply to it. It's a beautiful symbol for a lot of different things. You know, it's a symbol for striving, or maybe even feeling like you're almost out of oxygen or something. You know, it can be so many different directions, and that's why a lot of artists actually do explore it. Eric Fischl, really famous New York artist, now very, very famous international artist, does swimmers constantly. And he says he just loves that they can be interpreted in so many different ways. And so I like that about his work. Cool. And so now I'm going to do the hair on the head. It's really quite Payne's gray. It's even got a little blue in it. That's what I'm going to use because I like that pop of dark in there. I think that's really nice. And you can every part of the Payne is a chance to adjust it. So the head's a little big, so I'm going to make it a little smaller. And there's that band along the back.
Did you say you're using Payne's gray for her hair?
Yeah. Do you have a problem with that? No. You do not like that I'm using Payne's gray for the hair? No comment? Fine, fine. And then there's another sort of echo of that hair up there. You know, one thing I want to do is grab my number 4, and I'm just going to add a little. There's more. This isn't a solid purple because that's not a solid blue. So I'm going to put a second coat of purple over here and just let it dance around a little bit so that this breaks up the shape a little bit because it looks too perfect compared to the rest of it. Better. That already feels like it's more underwater. And then there's some darker browns in the skin tones up above that I'm going to add now, because I think I don't want to forget. So here and here and here and here, and I'm going to use some water to sort of soften them a little bit as I go, because they're not that strong. A little bit
Are
here.
you using a number 4 brush?
Yeah, using my number, I found my number 4 brush, and this is not a fancy one, but it's a great tip on it and everything. It's a Cotman, Winsor Newton Cotman, number 4.
Cool. Thank you.
And it's got a nice tip on it and holds plenty of water for a 4. And you know, it doesn't have to be always an expensive brush. If you've got one brush that you're using most of the time, sometimes it's helpful if it's a really big brush. But this number 4 is wonderful. And I lost it for a while. I didn't know where I put it. It was at the bottom of my the bag that I carry back and forth to the studio. But found it. All right. Well, if she's swimming, she's got to be in water. Here comes the water. I'm going to move some of this pigment out of the way. And I'm going in with, oh, should I? I'm going in with the big brush. This is my number 10. This is my fave. This is the sable. Look at the tip on that baby. Isn't that amazing? And it holds a lot of water. And it really, I don't know, it just is really a nice brush to in your hand. It becomes a sort of a really lovely extension of yourself. So I'm going with cerulean blue. It's a pool blue, you know what I mean? This isn't the color of water in life, in like in a lake or something. This is the color in a pool. So here comes this blue. And that blue, like I said, it comes into the body here and there. So I'm going to put it in. I'm putting it in. And you're like, oh, that can't be, but it is. It's that distortion through the water as the rippling water just distorts things. It's going to come up this way. And again, I'm going to leave little pieces of white here and there because those little pieces of white make the water sparkle. And the cerulean blue is granulating, which I do like, but I have to say, if you don't want the cerulean blue to granulate, sink into the pattern of the paper, then you can buy cerulean blue hue, and cerulean blue hue does not granulate. So you can have the same color. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Again, try to leave a few pieces of white here and there. Just adds a sparkle to the water, a little freshness to the water. This is a little bit of cobalt blue coming in now. Just let that come out this way. I'm going to work this all the way to the top here and to the bottom. And if I'm trying to chase things 2 directions, what I will often do is soften the edges like this, so that when I'm done up here, I can come back here and do the softness going the other direction too, and you don't know where it started and stopped, right? Plus the water is going to get a little more interest after it's had a chance to dry a little bit. So I'm going to do the same thing over here and just soften that a little bit. So then when I come back to it, I'll be able to just, there won't be a strong line there. I am such a fan of cerulean blue, and like Winsor and Newton is my go-to. It's just such a pretty blue. I mean, come on now. It's just, it is something. Try to capture that ripple along this edge. This is where I kind of put a pinky down to stabilize my hand. And then it allows me to get just the tip of the brush in there and go around things. So that breaks up a little bit right there. That blue's going to wrap around the head right here. I'm going to go right over those 2 darks right there because they're kind of blurry anyways in the picture. I'll let that blue wrap there. And then this is going to come up this way. Try to leave a little sparkle in there. Shoe. And again, got to get that little ripple of the hand through the water as it distorts in the water. Yes. Okay. And then we're going to just continue that uphill. And the hand's a little big, so I can adjust that a little bit, take that down a notch. Oh, just the tip of this brush. Maybe I should use it. No, it's going to work. I love it when the painting does some of the work for you. Like you're painting and you're like, and you're just letting the paint make some of the decisions. And sometimes if you're in the zone, the paint participates and says, yeah, okay, you're doing a good job, I'll help. And it makes things happen that you didn't necessarily intend, like with certain blooms or washes, but it looks good. And so you're like, thank you, paint. All right, I'm gonna bring this all the way over. And then I'm gonna bring this, and I'm gonna start the color coming down. And I do see, I am gonna grab my number 4 now, because up above, I do see a couple spots that need more distortion. Like right here, this blue comes into here. This is a little more blue in there. There's definitely more blue right here. And here. Yeah. And then we're going to bring this down. Now watch, so now I can just do this right here with the blue. And start it right here. Try to leave a couple of those little white things. And then I just take some water and a light wash here, and look how it just connects it again. There is no line where I stopped and started. So it's just such a nice way to be able to come back to a spot and make it go around things. And then this is, I'm going to come this way, but what I really want to do is slow down just a little bit right through here and get this shape right. It comes to here, comes down, comes in right there, and then it comes down this way. Good. And then back to the bigger brush. I'm just going to, well, it's wet. I'm going to add a little bit of that. And then this is going to come down this way. I wish this had come out just a little further. So I'm going to just push that out a little bit further so we can get this whole leg in here. This way, smaller brush. Get around these little dots so I don't lose them, because they're really kind of cool. This is how that leg just becomes shapes as it comes down. You like it, and it works. And we're going to bring the cerulean blue around this way, all the way down, because we're going to go all the way down to that foot there. Comes some blues, white dots here and there. It's too big. And I'm just going to do this. And then this, it's so interesting, look the way this, what happens down here, the way this just really becomes so abstract. But I think if you get it close, the eye will say, oh yeah, it's under the water. What do you think?
That's pretty amazing.
Great.
Pretty good,
Yeah,
right?
job. Yep.
I mean, it's a pretty fast one. And I'll say that it could use a little bit here and there, but overall, I kind of like it. I think it captures kind of swimming, you know?
Yeah.
I think a couple of things. It's too fat up here. Let me just thin that out a little bit. It's still wet. And yeah, better. And then there's a couple of places where I almost see a very, very light blue right over the skin, like right through here. So I'm going to add a little light blue in a few places right over the skin, because it pushes it down into the water a little bit more. And it happens, definitely happens over here. It's quite a bit darker right there and down here. Yeah, and I'm going to leave it alone. I'm exhausted. So one thing I could do is dry this and then do another wash, because I see a really interesting variety of blues behind it, right? You see all the subtle varieties of blues, and do another wash of blue on top of it. I think I'm gonna leave it alone for now. because I want to show that wash that we talked about, going around things wash. All right, that's going to be that. And put that over there. And you'll each get a unique picture this week of a swimmer to work from. And so let me find a good one in which to. I'm having too much fun this week. So this is just more of a scrap piece because it's got a couple spots on it. So that's perfect for this sort of demo. So all I'm going to do is a quick shape. So this is, we're going to say this is the painting, right? That's going to be the painting there. And I'm just going to make a random shape, but it could be a person sitting there. Maybe I'll make kind of a really rough person sitting there. And this is just a head. There's somebody like whatever, right? So this is their arm coming down. And this is their breasts. That's the breast. And how do you paint all the way around this in one thing? So here's the trick. Here's the way to do it. You want to find somewhere close to the edge to sort of, but not in a really important spot, because you don't want the distraction to be there. This would be a nice sculpture, by the way. It's kind of like, and it's actually, yeah. And so we're going to go with the color all the way around. So you want to find somewhere close to the edge because you're going to go all the way around and come back to this spot. So what I'm going to do is, and it won't be perfect, but there's always a place where you start and stop in a watercolor where if you go all the way around something where there's going to be some noise, some line, something. But I'm going to show you how to make that less. And so once again, I'm going to be using two brushes, probably my number 6 and my number 4. The 4 is going to get me through the little spots and around things, and then the 6 will fill in the space really fast. What you want really is a puddle of color that is going to be able to go all the way around. And you want more than you think you need because you don't want to run out. If you have to start mixing color, so right now I'm just putting a bunch of water right here, shoveling it from my water pail over into this puddle here. Is that enough? No. And if it's a really large one, you can pour it, but I think a few more of these will be good. No. Grab my big brush, shovel a little faster here. And that will make it all the way around. I'm confident. And then this is going to be a purple, quinacridone purple. Look at that. Look at that gorgeous color. I'm going to try to mix it up pretty good. Mix it all the way around and mix the middle. And I'm going to add sienna, burnt sienna to it. What? Burnt sienna? Yes, burnt sienna. Boom, just like that. So it's going to be a pretty interesting color. Right there. Move that. Find some dry around it so it doesn't all get too much. All right, and it is kind of separating in the puddle. So clearly, I think the sienna is heavier than the purple. Because I think it's an earth tone. So you know what they do is the sienna comes traditionally comes from the earth, and it's mined from the earth. And then if you want burnt sienna, you take regular sienna and you put it in an oven and you burn it. You fire it at a high temperature and it changes its color. And that's what burnt sienna is. And that's also what burnt umber is. You literally take regular umber and burn it. So when you've got a burnt, they really do mean that they actually burned it. I think that's pretty interesting. So here we go. I'm going to start with this little line right here. This is going to be the starting and stopping spot right here. And I'm going to just, whenever I need the smaller brush, I'll grab it. But for right now, I'm going to do what I did on the other one. I'm going to take some clear water right here, and I'm going to put it down on the paper, and I'm going to touch that edge. And it'll be so much easier to come around and blend with that soft edge to come back to. Or maybe it might even be wet by the time I come around, but I'm not sure. So here we go. We're going to start taking this all the way around. And there's something on the paper. I'm sorry about that, but that's why it makes for a good piece of demo paper. I don't know what got on it. Something got on it. So I'm going to just follow this edge, and I'm just going to keep tilting this paper. So you always want to tilt the paper downhill, but you want to do it after you get around something. After you get around this hand, for example, you have to get around that hand, pull the paint around that hand, because if you tilt it and the paint gets trapped in there, you're going to get a bloom right there. So now I can just lead what we call the bead. The bead is this wet front edge. Now that wet front edge is what we're going to lead that bead all the way around. That's called the bead. Now, when it's good cotton paper, do you see how much I can tilt that without that running? It's almost vertical, guys. It will hold the bead. So just don't worry about tilting it too much. You can't tilt it too much, but it's hard to really make that bead fall when you don't want it to. So just start, and when you start losing your bead, you must dip again immediately, because that bead is keeping that front edge wet for you, keeping it wet. So here we go, we're getting to here. We're going to take it all the way to the top of the head here on this amazing sculpture. And then we're going to tilt it again. So now we're tilting it this way. And we're going to lead that downhill this direction. Nice and juicy. Don't use a dry brush at all. If you don't have a bead, it isn't juicy enough, guys. Really dip that in there. Let the paper hold it for you, and let the paper hold that bead for you, so that you can just really get a nice flat, even wash all the way. We're going to get all the way to here. And then we got to tilt it again. So now it's coming downhill this way, the bead. You can even help it a little bit, pull it down, get it all to drop.
That's so cool. It totally makes sense.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's such a great way to control the watercolor. Its gravity is a very important thing, more so in watercolor than just about any other medium.
Is it fun for you, or is it tedious to do?
No, this is fun. This is fun for me.
Cool.
I love painting.
The whole bead part of it, getting that leading edge, makes so much sense too.
Yeah.
Pulling the color down and not losing it.
And the bead's essential so that you don't get a lot of brush strokes in the paint. You know what I mean? That you're letting the paint just fall over the surface, really. And it's a very light touch. I'm not pushing it all into the paper. So then when I get here, this is the tricky part in making these two sort of meld, right? So what I'm going to do is turn it and get the bead sort of right across this part right here. And it's going to be a much smaller bead now, because we don't need that much. And then I'm just going to take some clear water. It's a little bit scary right here. And sometimes you have to tweak it a little bit. And I'm drying off the brush mostly. I'm leaving some of the water on there. And I'm going to just put this water right here and let this come this direction, and let that water fall, the color fall this direction, which it's doing. And add a little bit where it's necessary. And we're going to call that good. That's pretty good. This will dry a little bit lighter. It'll dry very close to what's right there. So, and it's not a distraction. That's the most important part about where you start and where you stop, is that it's not really a distraction. But you'll see that it will dry close to this lightness once it's had a chance, and it will lighten up slightly, just like we were talking about. As they dry, they get lighter. You see the one thing I missed? Do you?
A little part under her arm.
Under the arm.
Yes, yes.
Oh, you forgot the breasts.
I think the breasts are evident.
Okay, guys, that's too much.
There it is. There it is. So there's your demo of how to go around something, and the swimmer demo. So very good. That was
Thank
fun.
you.
Let me
Thank
switch
you for that.
cameras. You're so welcome. I think that would be a really cool sculpture. Seated woman, it's going to be called, with breasts.
You can stop recording.
I should stop before I make that joke. I should have stopped.